From programming and server development in Hytale to a sneak peek into the renowned BlockShot Network, don't miss out on the latest from Hycast, starting right now.
Hello everyone and welcome to Hycast, the premier Hytale podcast. I'm your host Fezzi, and today we have a weird one. We're joined by ThirtyVirus. Welcome to the podcast, man. We're glad to have you.
Hello.
So as you probably already, like all of you know, like who ThirtyVirus is, but for those who don't, I'm gonna go ahead and give the mic over to 30 here to explain where he is in the Hytale space and where he sees himself.
Yeah, so I'm a content creator, a YouTuber and streamer, and the owner of the BlockShot Network. I'm trying to think of other things to do with Hytale, at least. I mean, otherwise it's all Hypixel Skyblock right now.
Yeah. Funny enough, BlockShot actually owns Hycast, which is why this is like strange. So
I think this is an especially funny one because me and Fezzi have been talking for over a year now.
Yep.
And like almost every day. And along the lines of what you said, I think technically it's that BlockShot and Hycast are both owned by Button Press.
Oh right, yeah.
So they're like brothers in that way.
Yeah.
But yeah. So this is gonna be really funny because we talk all the time, so it'll be kind of weird to be formal.
Yeah. So I guess we're gonna hop into like one of the meatiest like things that we're going to be discussing like this episode, which is programming in Hytale, because I'm sure a lot of us know that you are very knowledgeable when it comes to programming and coding. So to hop into this, the Hytale team has a massive focus on helping people make mods for their game, which has made Hytale very appealing for programmers and developers such as yourself. So with this in mind, how many new doors do you see being opened for mod makers, and what excites you the most about programming in Hytale?
I think Hytale has more potential as like a platform than a standalone game. It's almost like its own game engine, which, like you said, is going to be huge. I think mods is going to be a technical term in a way, because you could almost make an entire game within the game, and you could package it as a mod. So like, I think it could be game changing because it allows people that know just a little bit of coding to be able to, you know, instead of doing all the meticulous startup stuff that you would normally have to do with a game, you could just get right into it and make something awesome.
Right.
So I mean, that's what excites me the most, is just how versatile it seems to be.
Yeah. And funny enough,
and
go ahead.
One of my goals for a long time was to make what I considered the perfect Fallout game.
Yeah.
And I was prepared to make my own engine and everything, since I already kind of did that with my 2D project, the RP Games engine. But
yes,
now that Hytale is a thing, I figured, you know what, making the ultimate Fallout game could morph into something more like the Apocalypse mode in the BlockShot Network. It'd be like a multiplayer open world Apocalypse RPG.
Yep.
And so far, everything that's been planned for the game mode seems to be possible based on, you know, what we've heard thus far. So I mean, it gets me super excited, all this stuff with the modding and just how versatile it seems to be.
Yeah, and funny enough, this kind of brings up an interesting point that we had with our podcast with Jim from Stolendale, and that's the game industry, and that Hytale kind of fits in with that. And we've even mentioned that like Hytale kind of seems to be more like a Roblox in a way than a Minecraft, in terms of games have been made in Roblox that turned into games. Like Unturned was a Roblox game, according to what like I know. I'm not 100% on that, but that's what I was told, was that Unturned was made in Roblox, and it was so popular that it became a game. And Hytale seems to be more like a platform that will be capable of doing that than Minecraft. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a cool starting point for pretty much any voxel-based game going forward. It makes sense to start there.
Yep.
In my opinion.
Yeah. So we know that the players will be be able to join modded servers without having to manually download the required mods like beforehand, in a way, as they will automatically install when you join. So what precautions do you think Hytale will take to protect players and prevent them from downloading dangerous mods from malicious servers?
Yeah, I did a whole talk with one of my programming buddies. You might have heard of him, Warlord. But yeah, we had a conversation about that, and I think the best way to prevent problems like that would be just to limit what you can do in the engine, which sounds kind of funny considering what I said earlier about how open it is. But keeping everything contained to within the file system of Hytale would be safe. I don't know enough about like networking and, the more, internet based stuff. I'm more of an object oriented programmer. I make, games and applications. I don't really deal with the whole, sneaking your way into someone's computer and remotely causing damage thing.
Right.
But there's definitely going to be some sort of precaution. Maybe there'd be a system where like a mod would have to get approved. I don't know. Maybe. I know that it is a challenge. I think that's going to happen is that people are going to try to take advantage of the self-downloading mod thing.
Kind of like what happens with Gmod. I've heard a lot of people have problems with Gmod in that way, and I actually compare Gmod a lot to this game in that way because it does the same thing where it downloads all of the mods in the loading screen. And I've heard people, I don't know this for absolute certain, so don't hold me to this, but I've heard people complain that Gmod has installed things like that before, and it would be bad to see that happen with Hytale.
Yeah, I was just about to mention Gary's mod in the same exact way.
Yeah,
and I didn't know that was a problem. So yeah, I guess it is a concern we should have.
I'm not, like I said, I'm not 100% on that. I've just heard, from the community. Maybe they could approach it like some file sharing sites do, where they kind of scan files before they're uploaded to whatever, and maybe that's how it would work. I'm not sure, but there definitely needs to be precautions in place because there's always going to be someone out there that wants to damage something. So
yeah, I mean, I'm not much of a computer security type of guy, but what you just said is basically the beginning of something like a hacking. It'd be like an arms race. The hackers will get thwarted by that layer of defense, but then they're going to find some way to get through it, and then Hytale would have to then respond to that with another update, and it never ends.
I mean, just like
kind of like the cheating problem in like Minecraft. There's always some way to get in,
and just like a lot of I mean, pretty much every security system in the world does that, is they have to just constantly update Windows security updates. We all know about those, constant all the time, because people break them all the time, and it's a scary thing. So we're gonna have to see what Hytale's gonna do to be precautious about malicious intent. So yeah. Now, one of the major flaws when it comes to programming in Minecraft is the lack of an API, which is yet to be released to this day. So do you believe Hytale will have an API ready to share upon release, and why would that be so important?
I think it'll be similar to the current way of making Minecraft plugins, how you have Craft Bucket, Spigot, that sort of deal. So instead of being able to change the game at a fundamental level, the game just already kind of is open by default. So I don't know if you can count that as they probably would come with some form of API. You'd probably just be able to directly modify, attributes of the game. But I don't think it'd be like, well, okay. From a player perspective, everything could change, but like under the hood, everything's exactly the same. You're just, telling the engine to do different things, I guess. I don't know. I'd compare it more to plugins than mods, but you can do just as much.
That's fair.
Is what I think is.
Yeah. So another flaw associated with Minecraft is that when the game gets updated, it would sometimes take weeks for servers to update to the newest version, which I've actually heard you talk about quite a lot, is that like you have to update everything and it takes a long time and it's really annoying. So a lot of the times that prevents players from joining without using like an outdated version of the game. So do you expect Hytale to have a solution to prevent this issue, and what do you expect them to do if the issue does come arise?
Well, updates are always going to happen. I mean, it is a good thing, but it is annoying for developers, and sometimes, it's more than just annoying. Maybe a developer, quit a project, and then just, their stuff would just be left unupdated, and then the game would keep moving on. I think it's more of an effort that needs to be taken after release than before.
Mm-hmm.
It's similar to how I think you could still run like DOS applications on a Windows 10 computer. Like there's
like a
backwards
compatibility.
Exactly. There's always some form of backwards compatibility, and Mojang just did not bother to do that.
Right.
I think the Hytale team has an opportunity to, demonstrate some form of backwards compatibility. It could be annoying, but all of us would appreciate it, especially if someone made an awesome mod and then disappeared.
Yeah, which is a big problem with Minecraft, is in order to use a lot of the mods that like you grew up playing, you have to go back to that version. And sometimes with the new launcher, it gets kind of complicated, because before you could just click on the old version, but now I don't even know how to do it because I don't use the new launcher. So, it's going to be, I think Hytale is definitely going to need to, if they want to keep things rolling, like in terms of mods, a backwards compatibility, maybe even a mode that you could launch that's backwards compatible, that's a little more stripped down or something, would be cool. So we'll have to see where that goes. But moving on, there's still a lot of technical information that we have yet to receive from the developers regarding the game and how it will function. So if you got to choose one thing to be covered in the next blog post, what would be, and how would it be beneficial to the community?
If I had to pick one thing, I think it'd be cool to watch the process of making a mod, to be able to see like an example of, hey, this is what happens when you make a mod. You use IntelliJ IDEA, you generate a jar, you throw it in a folder. This is what the API looks like. If you were to write this piece of code, what would it be able to do in the game? And then maybe just it'd be kind of cool just to have a list of all the different things in the API and like a short example of what it does. There's Java docs would be cool to just have a Java docs released. Then again, it wouldn't be very interesting to non-developers, but like it would expose all sorts of, it'd expose everything that you can do with mods right now.
And that
so
would
be kind of cool.
That would be good, because for server owners and developers, you'd be able to know what the limits are. So that would be very useful. But like you said,
so start to finish, like idea to mod, it would be kind of neat just to be like, hey, this is the format a mod is in. It's a literal jar file. Because right now we don't even know that. I mean, you could guess that because it's in Java. So I'd imagine you'd just be able to plop a jar file in a folder, but we don't know.
Yeah, so
maybe you have to import code directly and it compiles directly in the engine. We don't know.
Yeah. So it would be nice to have like a more comprehensive mod blog post, I think. So hopefully they do that in the future, and hopefully people's ambitions don't get too far ahead of what the game can do and they have to like make all these changes when the game comes out. So it'd be nice to see where the limits are. Moving on to the BlockShot Network. Outside of your YouTube videos, you're known for founding the shooter-based Hytale server called the BlockShot Network. For those who haven't heard about it, could you explain what it is?
Yeah, so the BlockShot Network is basically a collection of gun-based Hytale mini games. So there's multiple categories, one of which is a playlist called Run and Gun. It'd be your classic multiple teams, people spawn in, you can make loadouts, and then you fight for some objective, or maybe just fight in general. A lot of Call of Duty-esque, Battlefield-esque, simple, easy to understand game mode, really surface value, just good old like party games sort of thing, just fun.
Yeah, just fun.
And you could just jump into it and like everybody starts in the same place, everybody does the same thing. It's like, you don't have to spend 20 hours of your life setting up.
Yeah.
So that's Run and Gun. Then you have something like Zombies, which would again be a very party-like game mode. Everybody starts in the same place, but it would be more of a PvE co-op experience. So with your friends, you'd be able to fight off many hordes of zombies, but there'd also be a story element to it. And then my favorite, of course, is going to be the Apocalypse game mode, which is like this huge amalgamation of just my favorite mechanics from like 8 different games. So, for example, it'd be open world RPG, post-apocalypse, very Fallout-esque, but then you have elements that are just not present in Fallout. So there'd be, a base building system, but then on top of that, you'd be able to raid each other's bases. There'd be a ranking system based on which bases are the most well defended, the best strategies, and then which players are the best at raiding bases.
Wow.
There'd be skills, quests. It's very ambitious, probably the most ambitious project on the entire server, which is, you know, what we talked about earlier, like how ambitious can projects be. And I studied the crap out of all this stuff being a developer myself, and I feel like all this stuff is definitely possible. I mean, you could almost pull it off in Minecraft. It just wouldn't look that great. So
yeah,
but
that's true.
And there's a few other game modes too. Like we're planning a single player campaign, as well as a conquest like game mode that would be lumped in kind of somewhere in between zombies and run and gun. So there's a story element to it, but it's also a pick it up and immediately play sort of strategy based game mode.
So overall, the server sounds just like kind of a, not a nostalgia trip, but it's going to feel very familiar, which is a good thing. It's going to be very fun. It sounds like a game that you hop on, you have a lot of fun, you get some friends together, and you progress, just like a Call of Duty game or even a Battlefield game to some extent, because there is a little bit of inspiration there, which sounds like a good time.
I feel like it's annoying because all of the inspirations for these game modes have, you know, gone on paths that not a lot of us liked. You know, Call of Duty, in my opinion, stopped being good after Advanced Warfare, but for even more people, it stopped being good after like MW3.
Yeah, a lot of people
it just went in a completely different direction.
Yeah,
and then Fallout. I mean, after New Vegas, Fallout 4 was just boring. And just, I mean, the mechanics were great, the engine's great, but the content is just shallow. So like, and then you have Fallout 76, which we don't talk about
Fallout 76. Yeah.
So like, what I'd like to think is taking that same base idea and going in a different direction that I think would have suited both of those genres way better, and, you know, be told through this voxel game server.
Yeah. Which also makes it so it can run on most computers, which nowadays Call of Duties and Battlefields can't run on, you know, like your modern, just kind of mid-tier system. So, you know, that's a plus.
Yeah, the cool thing is that it'd be accessible. It would be most likely cross-platform, but we don't talk about that with Hytale yet. But if you want my opinion, that's definitely gonna happen. But it'd be cross-platform, accessible, with settings enabled. It could be family friendly. With other settings enabled, it could be, you know, not lame. It would have all the complexity and strategy of a good shooter in multiple ways. So it wouldn't be too easy. It wouldn't be toned down. It'd be everything we want from a game, because it's made by the people that grew up playing that genre of game and saw what went wrong.
Right. 100%. So one of the more unique aspects of BlockShot, alongside the apocalypse mode, and we touched a little bit on this earlier, is the single player campaign for players to enjoy. What made you think of incorporating a single player experience, and how will it tie into the rest of the server?
Yeah, so the single player experience is interesting. At first, Apocalypse was the first game mode idea, and the idea was to have this huge, elaborate story, and it'd be to the point where you could, you know, almost make a movie out of it. There's like a huge universe. Right. There's scenes that are, you know, filmed before the apocalypse took place. We would want, you know, all the events to unfold throughout this large campaign. But then, you know, thoughts started coming up. Well, we can't really express what happened because it's going to be told through the lens of, hey, this is a ruined world, and here's little bits and pieces of what was left behind. And then one of our council members decided, hey, what if we just made it its own game mode, a single player campaign? And it's very different from what a server network is to offer, but what if we distributed our quote engine as a mod that you could run locally?
So it'd be offline.
And it could, well, of course, we don't know if Hytale's capable of doing that, but assuming it is, yeah, then we would do a, you know, a download sort of thing where it'd be free to access, of course, and it'd just be a nice playable experience, and it would tie in with the events. All the game modes are connected, so like the details in the background of even the run and gun maps, especially Apocalypse, it's all going to tie in to this overarching universe that we've actually been building for the past like 6 months.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So that actually brings up another, like, kind of harking back to the whole game in game industry, because that is like exactly what that is. You'd be essentially using Hytale as an engine for a new experience entirely. There's a new story, there's a new multiplayer, there's a new PvE, PvP. It's just like completely new, and the only thing that's the same is the fact that it's cubes. So I think that's a great example of what people might be able to pull off, because if Hytale's that comprehensive, this, like you said, could be a huge deal. And if people were able to basically make their own games out of this game, then it'll be massive. I mean, that's such an appealing thing to think about, is, you know, this very accessible engine, because a lot of people see like Unreal and it's very intimidating, or Unity, and seeing Hytale and it's like, you know, there are people that have made like games out of this, then it's a lot more enticing to walk towards, because, you know, people like you,
I think it'd be like, as a plugin developer, I realized that if you teach yourself basic Java and spend like a day figuring out Spigot, it's like, wow, like programming's so cool, because you can see the effects of what you did literally like in a second. And because of that, you know, Hypixel comes from that environment. They made plugins, so I would imagine their experience with Hytale would be similar. So what if like this became a thing where all you got to do is learn some basic Java and then just jump in and make your own games? I feel like this could be in like schools and stuff to teach, you know, programming languages.
I mean, there is a Minecraft education edition that kind of aims towards that similar feel.
Yeah, it's baby steps.
You know,
I haven't seen a plugin development oriented class yet, which I think would be really cool. But, you know, not a lot of people know about just the potential of that. But I mean, I'll hold off until Hytale to, you know, go public with saying, hey, everybody should teach Java through the lens of Hytale mod development. I feel like that could be big. That could inspire millions of people to be game developers, or even just application developers. And I think one of the most difficult concepts in programming to really learn is that, like, is just how instant some of it is. It's like, hey, you just made this thing and you get to watch it do what it was designed to do instantaneously. And that's something that a lot of people miss out on when they're teaching themselves like Java or C++ using like a YouTube series.
Right.
It's like, oh, I made a random number generator, now what? But like seeing what you did actually like working in like a 3D space, and like being able to mess with things and just see it like blow up or break, like in the plugin dev videos that I posted. There's 2 of them so far, like the making TNT explode, but instead of a crater, it just converts everything into snow.
Right.
The little discoveries like that really solidify the concepts of programming. So I feel like it'd be cool to have Hytale be that outlet.
Yeah, 100%. So kind of building upon the implementation of the campaign, what challenges do you expect to face when you finally get down and try to make it?
I think getting a framework to start with is going to be insane. And, you know, once you rent boxes, it's obvious that we'd want to make some system that grows via software. It'd be a big mess to manually configure every new server that's made and then having to update every single box every time an update rolls out. So we're going to have to look into a lot of the logistics behind something like Hypixel Skyblock, because that's exactly the sort of under the hood functionality we would want, is a bunch of virtual servers that run on the same box, and then you could just tell it to update and it will. Like, that's probably not going to be easy. And and I think just getting the core concepts of the game down is going to be probably the most challenging step, because, you know, we said for months that we would start with a run and gun playlist, because, you know, the basic mechanics, running, sprinting, having a weapon, aiming down the sights, crouching, throwing a grenade, like things like that. Like, you need to do that before anything else.
Right. You know, like you said, a basic framework, kind of building blocks and where you can go forward with it, is important. Kind of a foundation.
Yeah. So I feel like that's going to bottleneck the productivity of the team for a bit until that's done. But then after that, I mean, once there's a framework down, then that's it. It's going to be, hopefully it'd be smooth sailing ahead, but there's probably going to be problems. But I think those are the two most important things: is the core gameplay mechanics and figuring out that plug-in server magic with like the machines just producing new virtual servers all the time and updating.
Right.
It's a very intimidating thing, because again, I don't do networking, so it's just like, what the hell is happening?
Yeah. Of course, we all have to wait to see where the limits are to 100%, know where we can start and end things. But hopefully everything goes well, because it is ambitious, but it is possible. It can definitely be a reality. So let's hope everyone's visions can be realized with Hytale. So another ambitious game mode that BlockShot plans, that we touched on a little bit earlier, was Apocalypse, which is said to come out, with a vast open world and a long-term experience. So since not much has been publicly released about the game, what can you say about it now without revealing too much?
Other than what I said earlier about the base building and raiding mechanics, I feel like BlockShot's Apocalypse will have a very Fallout-like feel. So there's probably going to be a lot of magic going on in the background that makes you feel alone, even if you're not. So one mechanic I was talking about with the team for a while was the idea of per player enemies. So on a server, there could be, say, 100 people, but maybe none of those players are visible to each other unless they're within the same profile. And same with enemies. Some enemies might show up and you could only see them if you're the player that it was summoned for. So I want it to be a server experience. So there'll still be towns, there'll still be settlements, and you'll be able to see other players. But out in the wasteland, it will feel like it's just you. And I think that's what's going to be, very different in the Hytale server space, because I haven't heard of this concept really.
Right.
So yeah, it'd be kind of neat that I think that's going to be a big part of it, is that it's going to feel like it's just you and your buddies, unless you're in like a safe place, like again a town or something.
Yeah. So that once again is not something that could be pulled off very easily in Minecraft. So let's hope this can happen, because that sounds incredible, obviously. Without revealing
one thing,
it sounds great.
And I think this can only really be achieved by the fact that everybody's playing technically a mod,
right?
Because that mod can do a lot of the heavy lifting on the client side instead of server side.
Right.
So the server might know the location of an enemy, but it won't know what the specifics of the map is. It won't know the specifics of what that enemy is about to do. Of course, this opens up questions regarding anti-cheat, but I mean, for the most part, a lot of the experience would technically be single player, but it's like it'd be almost like an always online single player game, but with actual multiplayer elements implemented.
Right.
So it would feel like its own game, and it wouldn't experience a lot of the problems that Minecraft has right now, because if the server starts dying, then you're going to feel it when you're fighting something. Or if you're, for example, in the end in Hypixel Skyblock and a zealot spawns every 20 seconds, there'd be like 4 people crowded around the exact spot where it spawns waiting to kill it. And because of the fact that everything needs to happen server side, you can't have, well, you can have something like per player enemies, but it would really bog down the servers a lot.
Right.
So with a mod, I mean, theoretically speaking, the servers for the game could be tiny. You could probably handle several thousand people on one server, depending on how much responsibility you give to the computers of the people playing, you know?
Right.
So it could be huge.
So it's all about balancing
I think that's
resources, essentially.
Yeah, we're going to have to, I think one of the goals of the dev team early on is going to be, how much can we get away with making the client's computer do without the server having to do it? Because that would reduce cost. It would increase the amount of players. It would probably make the game experience better, because maybe, the idea can have a rough estimate of where an enemy is, but like most of the processing would be happening in real time. So you would never experience lag,
Right.
that'd be freaking cool.
So as the owner of Button Press LLC and a developer of RP Games Engine, you're obviously pretty experienced with programming. So assuming BlockShot is a successful server, do you have any plans to take the experience outside of Hytale and make BlockShot its own game in the future?
We actually joked about that. A running joke was that if Hytale takes too long to come out, we'll just make BlockShot a game. Like, we'll just make the engine in like mono game or something and just do it. But it depends on how successful it is, I guess. Yeah.
So the possibility's there, but to be determined.
Yeah, I mean, if it's successful enough within Hytale, I see no reason really to switch over unless there is some huge limitation. But as of now, it's hard to tell what that limitation would be, if there even is one.
So moving on to...
For all we know, we'd be comfortable in just Hytale and that'd be it.
I mean, yeah, that's perfectly fine. I mean, but it'd be cool to see, the evolution of a game like that, especially if it became like a really popular version by itself. So it'd be cool to see like a game kind of age and kind of come along like that. It'd be a very interesting, timeline. So, be interesting to see where that goes.